Good morning, students. Today we will continue with our chapter number 8, the nervous system. The nervous system of human beings includes the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. The central nervous system includes the brain, spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system includes the nerves going to different parts of the body. And the autonomic nervous system includes the nerves related to the involuntary organs. In this chapter, we are going to study in detail about the central nervous system. The central nervous system is considered as the supreme power of controlling all the bodily responses. It consists of the brain and spinal cord. Human brain is a highly developed organ. It is the uppermost part of the central nervous system. It is present in a hard bony box called cranium or skull. The cranium protects the brain from any mechanical injury. The human brain is enveloped by three meninges. That means three coverings are present outside the brain. Outer soft pia mater, middle thin arachnoid, and the inner tough dura mater. The space between the meninges and the cavity of the brain is filled with a clear fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. The meninges and the cerebrospinal fluid cushions the brain against shock. That means it does the work of protection of the brain against any injuries or shocks. The functions of the brain are: it receives the information from the receptor organs and generates appropriate responses and sends them to the effector organs. It controls and regulates overall functioning of the body. It acts as a site of intelligence, memory, and reasoning. So all your intelligence is because of your brain. The human brain is divided into three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain and most complex part. It accounts for about 80% of the brain. It is divided into right and left cerebral hemispheres by a sheet of thick fibers called corpus callosum, which acts as a medium of transfer of information between both the hemispheres. The cerebrum is highly folded structure. These folds are called the gyri, and the depression between them are called sulci. Both the gyri and the sulci increase the surface area to accommodate more nerve cells. You can see the diagram. It resembles like a walnut. Functions: it helps to observe the things around us through sensory organs. It controls thinking, memorizing, reasoning, and intelligence. It controls the vision, hearing, mood, emotion, and speech. So all are intelligence, reasoning, memory, anything you can say, it is because of the cerebrum. The cerebellum is the region lying at the back of the head under the cerebrum. It is the second largest part of the brain. The cerebellum coordinates impulses sent out from the cerebrum. Its function is to control the posture and balance of the body. It coordinates the muscles during locomotion, like you're walking, sitting, running, whatever you are doing, it is balanced by the cerebellum. Medulla oblongata extends down from the center portion of the brain. It is the posterior part of the brain which continues with the spinal cord. Its function is to control the involuntary responses, that is the responses which we cannot control, which are not under our control, such as breathing, heartbeat, swallowing. Secretions of some glands are also controlled by the medulla oblongata. Extending down from the medulla oblongata is a long spinal cord that comes out from the foramen magnum and a large oval opening in the occipital bone of the skull. Like the brain, it is also protected by the meninges and runs along the vertebral column. The spinal cord is a major connection center between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. That means the nervous. In the spinal cord, two similar halves fuse together to form a small canal called the central canal. This canal is filled with a fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid, which protects the spinal cord from the external shocks. The inner part of the spinal cord is called the gray matter, which consists of cell bodies and neurons. The outer part is made up of white matter, which consists of nerve fibers. On each side of the spinal cord are two horns, the dorsal horn and the ventral horn. The sensory nerves join with the dorsal horn to pick up the sensation from various organs, whereas the motor nerve take messages from the spinal cord to the organs connected. Spinal cord is the center of reflex actions. The spinal cord acts as a center of processing the reflex actions or responses, and it conducts the sensory and motor impulses to. Sometimes a very quick response is needed in our body which does not need the involvement of the brain. Such type of response is called the reflex action. A knee jerk, coughing, yawning, blinking of eyes, sneezing and salivation are few examples of the reflex action. The reflex action may be defined as a quick, spontaneous mechanical response towards the stimulus. The nervous pathway involved in a reflex action is called a reflex arc. The reflex arc of a reflex action is shown below. Stimulus sends a signal to the receptor, receptor to sensory neurons, neurons to the spinal cord gives order to the association neuron to the motor neuron, and motor neuron to the effector organ, making the activity to be done. Reflex actions are rapid and happen spontaneously without thinking. For example, we would pull our hand away from a hot flame without thinking about it. If we unknowingly touch a hot object, the heat is sensed by the heat receptors in our hand. These receptors start an impulse in the sensory neuron, which transmits the message to the spinal cord. This impulse is passed via the association neuron to the motor neuron. The motor neuron passes the impulse to the muscle of our arm. The muscle of the arm is an effector organ because it shows the response to the stimulus. Pavlov's experiment. Children, you all know when your mothers cook any of your favorite foods, then our mouths start watering. If so, then you have been conditioned. That means our mouth starts watering because of that smell of our favorite food. In the early 1900s, Ivan Pavlov, a Russian biologist, studied this condition response when he trained the dogs to salivate at the sound of a bell. Pavlov knew that dogs naturally salivated when meat was fed to them. To condition this salivation, Pavlov rang a bell each time when he presented the food to the dogs. After the ringing bell was paired many times with the presentation of the meat, the dogs salivated on ringing the bell even when meat was not available. In other words, the dogs had become conditioned because they expected that the meat reward would follow the sound of the bell. This experiment helps us to understand the conditioning in human brain as well. A perfect example of classical conditioning is that in hospitals, when a child starts crying because of the pain of the needle piercing through his body during vaccination, other children also start crying even before they see the needle. Only on hearing the cry of the other child, they start crying. In this case, crying is the behavior learned through the classical conditioning.